Hello there, world, wherever you are. Welcome back once again to the fabulous and strange world that is the There Will Be Geek podcast. I'm Mike, and with me I have my usual fellow contributors to this bit of nonsense here. Over on my left we have...
I'm Cav.
And on my right we have...
Hello, I'm Chani.
First of all, we are starting with our Thimble of Win. Now, in my case, and I think all of our cases, the Thimble of Win for this week has to be one thing. The Battle of the Bastards. We've just sat down and we've watched episode 9 of season 6 of Game of Thrones, and I can safely say it blew my head off. I'm not going to issue any spoilers right now. I think partly because of the fact that this is going to be going out this week, and there may be people who haven't seen it, but oh my fucking god!
Having said that, spoilers, fucking metal, spoilers.
I felt so attached to it. I'm a bastard myself, so I just really connect with those characters.
It's nice to know the bastards have their own event now, you know?
They do. And it's on Father's Day for those in the US. And
Yeah, I thought that was quite a nice touch. But the cinematography, the action, the fight sequences, the writing, the sheer visceral nature of it all. I mean, one of the things that Game of Thrones has always done really, really well is visceral violence that you can almost feel through the screen. It's beautifully choreographed. Every year, you don't think that they're necessarily going to be able to top the previous year's efforts on episode 9, and quite often you are surprised because, oh my word, that one knocked me for 6 entirely, and I'm only disappointed now that we've got one episode of this season left and we're going to have truncated final seasons because there's so much more that needs to happen. But anyway, that's my Thimble of Win. How about you, Chani?
for my work, I have to use a Mac. I don't like it. I'm not a Mac user. I'm PC all the way. God love you, Bill Gates. I love Windows. It's great. I have a Windows phone, and I have been able to change my Mac over to a Windows machine. So right now, in my little hands, I have the brand new Windows Surface with the Windows 10 Pro on it. I absolutely love this thing. I can disconnect the screen and use it as a tablet and walk around my office and do meetings with it. I can draw on it, and I can do so many different things, and I can get work done so much faster just because I know how to use this properly. I had a Mac for 4 years and I still couldn't work that shit out. So that is my Thimble of Win. I'm so happy with this, and it's so easy to use, and people at work are now getting kind of, I don't know, green-eyed about it. They keep coming over and having a look at what I'm doing and how easy it is, and they all keep giving the whole, I reckon I could get a few more converts over to the Windows side.
Excellent news. Excellent. I've got to say, I'm looking at it now. It does look rather juicy and lovely. Cav, how about you?
For me, it's The Nice Guys, the new film by Shane Black. Now, look, most of us cinephiles, geeks of a sort of celluloid persuasion. That's not too pretentious, is it? Yeah, it's too pretentious. Fuck it. Who cares? Shane Black is just one of those. It's one of the good ones. As most you will know, he wrote the original Lethal Weapon. He first found fame as the highest paid screenwriter of all time for films like The Long Kiss Goodnight.
And let's not also forget his starring role in the original Predator movie as the dweeby guy with the glasses and the terrible jokes.
Yep, he had the many bad pussy jokes.
Wait, were they jokes about bad pussy, or were they just bad jokes about pussy?
Basically, the character's shtick was he kept on telling really bad jokes about his girlfriend's pussy.
Oh.
But that was kind of the joke, that none of them were funny. The story with that was he was originally hired to do a script polish on it. And he said, no, I won't do it unless I fly down to Panama or whatever the fuck it was. They were filming this thing, and he put me in the movie. And the story goes that they agreed, they put him in the movie, then he went down and didn't do any writing. But anyway, The Nice Guys. It's very much in line with his more recent work. For example, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which you haven't seen. See it. Just do it. See it. He's sort of forged its nice line in sort of modern-ish noir, but with a very sort of cynical, very sarcastic edge, which is sort of typical with a lot of his previous film work. And it's great fun. Russell Crowe is great. He makes for a great sort of dumpy, down in his luck fixer kind of guy. Ryan Gosling is absolutely hilarious. He's an actor that I haven't seen all his work. I've never quite totally connected with him, but he's absolutely hysterical in this. I don't think it's quite the slam dunk that Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was, but definitely very worthy. And you got Keith David as well. And Keith David, having some Keith David in there is always a good thing.
Excellent. Right. So, pretty much this is a week full of a lot of win. I'm talking of winning. Video game movie adaptations. So, we did some research into this. I know, I'm shocked. We researched stuff. I'm as surprised as you. And we discovered, to our horror, that the first example of a video game movie adaptation is one that one of our number has somewhat of an obsession with.
It's not somewhat of an obsession. I'd probably call it a full-blown obsession now. I gotta deal with it. Everybody can deal with it. I don't care. I love it.
So, Chani, what is the movie that we are talking about here?
Super Mario Brothers! I love it. It's the greatest movie ever. I don't care what anyone says. It's my favorite goddamn movie on the face of this planet. I watch it as much as I can. I have like a thing that I do every year on my birthday where I will watch it. I can't have a birthday where I do not watch this. I still own this on VHS, and I still have a VCR so I can watch it. And I only watch the VCR one though on my birthday because it's actually the tape starting to wear out and more of the start is being like phased out, so I can't watch it as much. But I had the DVD, so I can always use that too.
Would you kind of like to give us a little bit of what the premise of this movie is?
I don't have to give you the premise. I know this thing word by word, so I could actually just relay the whole movie to us right now.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Good, because I just watched it myself and I can't work that
by
out.
dinosaurs. They were big, so not a lot of people went around hassling them. In fact, no people went, okay, I'm going to stop. Brief summary of this is we have our fantastic plumbers. We've got Mario and Luigi. And what happens through, a series of events that involve pipes and, the finding of dinosaur bones, which this is where Daisy comes in. They get taken to the Mushroom Kingdom. Daisy gets kidnapped because King Koopa is looking for the heir of the throne. So he has his two stupid dumbass lackeys, Iggy and Spike, go out into our dimension. Yes, there's dimensions. To find this princess. And they kidnap lots of different women from Brooklyn. And then they finally get the right one with Daisy. And so the thing is, Luigi is in love with Daisy because, they ran into each other and staring into each other's eyes and all the magic and blah, 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 blah. So he has to go after her after having one date with her because, that's how movies work. So yeah, they have a fun little romp in the Mushroom Kingdom trying to save Daisy and defeat Cooper. And because Cooper's also trying to bridge the portal dimension so he can come into our world and take it over because he can't go through and he needs like the piece of the meteorite which Daisy has and it's around her neck and it's just great and there's like, oh my god, I'm so excited.
I know this will probably come as a shock to all of you dear listeners and everyone in this room, but there are a lot of drugs in Hollywood.
There clearly must be, because I know I've played the games occasionally, like Mario Kart, Mario 64, and a few of the other games. I don't recall any of this happening with games.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I've noticed. One of the things I think we could all agree on. There is a tendency with the early games to hijack what appears to be an interesting cultural property, but not necessarily make anything that's directly that related to the game. I mean, for example, that Super Mario one, as far as I'm aware, although it's taken some of the features and some of the names of the characters and so on and so forth, it has very little to do with any of the original gameplay. And for the next movie that we've got on our list, again, the same sort of thing happens, and that is Street Fighter. Cav, could you tell us a bit about Street Fighter?
Right, so Street Fighter, I think, had a very interesting history. For a long time, it's been kind of the poster child of bad video game movies. It was made with a lot of hype behind it. Those out there who are older will remember the impact Street Fighter 2 had back in the early 90s. It was absolutely massive. The film itself was made very cheaply. I think it was shot in Thailand. I think most of the budget basically went on Jean-Claude Van Damme, who is playing Guile, one of the heroes of the game, who in the game is a blonde-haired American. So obviously you get a Belgian and dye his hair ginger. Because obviously. And Raoul Julia, the very respected stage actor, mostly known from the Addams Family, but was a huge figure in America, in American theatre, who was riddled with cancer at the time of the film, and it was his last film. He died not long afterwards. And he gives what's basically the thespian equivalent in his performance of a Viking death. It's very much, it's a film that was flopped on release. And like I said, it's always held up as one of the worst examples of video game movies. And the weird thing is, I kind of feel that looking back now, it's actually held up better than a lot of the movies we're going to be talking about today.
I think it would be fair to say that it's a reasonably good action flick. I mean, hell, it's got Jean-Claude Van Damme at his prime. It's got various different highly respected people who've then carried on. I mean, Ming-Na Wen recently from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. appears as Chun-Li in the movie. You've got a variety of different other performers still doing their best.
Yeah, with Studi as Sagat.
Yeah, and let's not forget Kylie Minogue. Yes, that Kylie Minogue kicking ass as some character called Camille, who I've never really heard of before.
Cammy.
No.
Oh, Cammy, was it?
No,
yes.
Cammy. Yeah.
Cammy, my apologies there.
Cammy, she's a cool chick. And she never wears pants, probably. It's like a bathing suit with some paint on her legs and a long plait.
The one thing I realised about that movie quite recently, I don't know why I ever picked it up, but it's actually kind of a prequel. Everyone complains about how nothing had anything to do with what was in the game. I only, in the last few years, noticed that at the very last shot of the film, right, are the characters pulling their poses from the game, and it's the first time you see them in their actual costumes.
Yeah.
And realising, oh, hang on, no, the movie was about how they got to the point where they were
Who they were.
in the game, which I never picked up on before.
See, I mean, this is the thing as well. There is arguably very little kind of crossover between the game world and the movie world at this point, and it's clearly very much the original form is not taken seriously at all by the producers.
The thing that I have, like, if we're just going to use the examples of Super Mario and Street Fighter to start with, is that it's like they do have the story for the game in these movies, but you've got to think that video game stories are very simple. Like, if you go to Super Mario Brothers, all it is you have to save Princess from Koopa. That's essentially what the movie is. You have to save the princess from Koopa. They just add in like a whole heap of extra weird ass shit in there because they need that story in there to make it a movie. Like, if you look at most video games and their stories, you don't get much time in stories. You get like a cutscene here, or you find little pieces of paper there, and then the rest of it is all made up of things that you do being involved in it. So that's why it seems like they don't connect properly.
Well, there is that, and I think also for our next movie that we will be talking about, this is one of the points where we start to see that kind of the crossover between the movie adaptations and the game world become more interesting. And what I'm on about now is Tomb Raider. Now, again, I think that the first Tomb Raider movie was actually a very, very decent movie. And it kind of works quite well because essentially Tomb Raider, as somebody, I think we had this discussion earlier on, is basically Lara Croft is Indiana Jones with boobs.
Yeah, and it's a recurring thing throughout a lot of these movies where video game properties that have been designed to rip off popular movie franchises for that recognition factor. And what happens when you try and reverse engineer that back into a movie? A lot of times it doesn't work.
I would say that with Tomb Raider particularly, it does work very well because most of the actual gameplay itself is actually relatively narrative driven. It's one of the first games you start to really see that kind of more complex narrative going on with. I mean, throughout the 90s, that had been happening with a variety of different games. I think sort of that and one of the other movies we'll be talking about later on with Silent Hill and Resident Evil. There were various different other games that were starting to appear which had a strong sense of narrative. I mean, yes, you had your levels, but it was more than just go from this room to this room to this room with gradually more complex monsters and baddies to fight. There was story arcs being put in there and cutscenes and so on and so forth. And Tomb Raider had that, as well as also, and this is not to be discounted too much, having a very strong central performance from a strong female protagonist.
Yay, Angelina Jolie. She's really hot. She's in my top 10.
Well, in fairness as well, I mean, it's also within the gaming world. She was the first real kind of strong, well, not the very first strong female hero at all, but one of the earliest kind of real breakout figures. And it is that interesting idea because you start to have more and more ideas based around this kind of this Tomb Raider concept, and later on you get more and more interesting other games that come up, like for example Resident Evil and Silent Hill, and to an extent things such as Max Payne and the Grand Theft Auto series, which are heavily influenced by the narrative elements of cinema. Now, what do you think of Silent Hill, Chani?
I love it. Yep. Sorry. Silent Hill is one of my favorite game series out there. Like, I even have Silent Hill tattoos. I don't even care if it's what everyone considers as a bad game, like The Room. Yeah, I'm talking about you, The Room, because it's still a Silent Hill game and it's still full of like stories and horrible things that, well, not horrible things, but you know, the horrific, gory backstory that gets all nitty gritty, and it's just, I love it. And the movie, I loved the movie too, but I was disappointed in it because, well, it can't capture everything that the game does.
It also has Sean Bean trying to attempt an American accent, which is wrong. It's wrong. That should never happen.
On top of which, there is also the other matter of Sean Bean doesn't die.
Yeah.
His accent did.
Yes, that's true.
He probably died a little bit on the inside while filming.
See, one of my very favourite things about this is the fact that it's based in and around a relatively true premise. Not necessarily any of the kind of the mystical mumbo jumbo or anything else like that, but for example, there are places in the United States where there are coal mine fires that have been going for the last 40 years and still are. I believe Centralia is one of them. I think it's in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And that's loosely what this is based on, the whole town being just completely closed off because no one can get to it because it's still on fire and will be probably for the next few hundred to 1,000 years. I don't know, I could be exaggerating there.
This city's on fire! Sorry.
But again, yeah, I think those games take a lot of their ideas from tropes and stories that we already have within the movie world and some of the narrative structures, and therefore some of those perhaps work in terms of their adaptations. But what are some of the main issues that you two would say are the problems why we haven't had more successful game adaptations?
Because the people making them, I don't know the people personally, but I think they're more in it to make money rather than make a good video game movie. Like, they're not taking the time to explore these video game worlds and finding the best story that'd work for a movie. They're just going, oh, okay, Silent Hill, it's a creepy town and there's a little girl in it, and yeah, let's just build upon that.
But are there any issues with the form itself? I mean, is there not going to be an issue with regards to the fact that one of the central features is interactivity?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, when you're watching a movie, I don't get the same immersion that I do with a video game. Like, I don't feel like that's my character. I don't get emotionally invested, and I don't feel like these things are happening to me. I'm just watching.
Yeah, which I think has been part of the issue in the past as well. I mean, why traditionally video game stories were so derivative from movies is because they had that interactivity, and that really gave people the hook, because you could go in and it's just like this movie, only you can play it.
Yeah. That's also the thing, because I'm a huge achievement whore. I like unlocking everything, discovering everything. And that's part of the reason why I love video games so much, is because I'm walking through, I have options onto where I can go and what I can do. Well, with some games, they have the open-ended world, so I don't have to follow the main story. I can go and find backstories and, experience all of this and take my time. And it's a story that I get to direct. Whereas with a movie that's based upon a video game, you have that completely ripped away from you and you don't get a choice. You have to literally deal with this the way that they've set it out, and that's why it doesn't work, because everyone's experience with video games is different. Like, I've been playing Doom recently, and I found backstory and little small bits that a guy at work hadn't seen yet, and it changed. We had different views on the game.
And this is the other thing as well. It can be argued that you are watching when you're watching a video game adaptation, you're essentially watching someone else play the game.
Yeah.
But you're always watching the same game being played every single time. And if it's you're watching someone else play the game and you think, oh, what are you going down? What? No, don't go down. Whoa, for goodness sake.
Yep.
Yeah, especially with Silent Hill, I found there's so many shots of them just walking around these environments. I actually felt like I was watching a playthrough sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the issues that you're going to find is the fact that there is a very fine line to be drawn, because on the one hand, you need to have the people who are enthusiasts for the game come to watch the movie, because they're going to be a lot of your core demographic. But at the same time, having it just be an extended playthrough is just going to shit people to tears.
Yeah. That's why we have YouTube. That's why we have like Tobuscus and Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie. I want to watch someone play a game. I'll jump on YouTube.
And there's this other person called PrimaCat.
Oh, her, gosh.
Never heard of her.
Watch her.
Never heard of her.
No, but I think the thing is, like, I do like bits of these movies. Like with Silent Hill, all the music that was used in that movie was ripped directly from the games. Well, except for Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire.
Yeah.
Which always reminds me of Cheezels.
Was there an advert or something?
Yeah, I know. There was. We'll get back to it later. But
I just think curry. Oh, I've had some curries on
oh,
time.
Jesus. I'm going to go there, but okay. But
I live there, it's all right.
but they bring out, like, they've tried, like, getting the music right, and they can get the atmosphere right. And even with some games, they'll even get the camera work correct. Because with Silent Hill, with some of the games, like, you don't get to choose your point of view. Like, you're walking down a corridor, you're going to get like a top-down view from a certain angle, and you can't change that. And that appears in some of the movies. So it does capture some of these essences from the actual video game. But I think where they fuck up, it's the story and it's the characters. They're done shockingly, because the people who are writing these and directing these and producing them don't know shit about video games and how they work and how we connect with them.
And also having that interactivity there, it makes you a lot more forgiving. Like, you can have characters that are much more sort of generalized archetypes.
Yeah.
Because it's your cultural knowledge you already have. Like, you know who these characters are. But the hook is, well, I get to interact with them. Yeah. And that makes up for a lot.
In Max Payne, for example, in Max Payne, he's very much in the game, it's a very two-dimensional, well, 2 to 3 dimensional character. It's a revenge thriller, and it's essentially film noir, revenge style. We know this story. We've seen 1,000,001 straight-to-video DVD or what have you over the years that have got a similar tale of bloodlust or what have you, and in the search for vengeance. And that's fine when you're playing a computer game, because part of that is with Max Payne, it's the noiriness. But then you get the Mark Wahlberg adaptation, and it's still, well, hang on a minute. You're now being not an incomplete version of a two-dimensional adaptation of an existing genre anyway.
That's the thing. If you completely changed his name, like made him, I don't know, Fred...
Maxi Max?
Yeah, you know, Fred McFuckbucket, and change the names.
God damn it, McFuckbucket, you've gone too far this time. Give me your badge, McFuckbucket.
That's the thing. If you changed the name and just changed names and it wasn't a Max Payne movie, it probably would have been absolutely great. But because it's a Max Payne movie and people are comparing it to the video game, it's fucking shite.
And talking of fucking shite, there has been an elephant in the room, and it's been dumping all over the corner of the room that is marked German cinema.
Ugh.
And that elephant is Uwe Boll.
Uwe Boll. That sounds like a Wii U game.
See, Uwe Boll, to quote Mark Kermode on this one, Uwe Boll, he's unimprovable.
Oh. You better not let him hear you say that, because he'll probably just try to fight you.
Yeah, would you like to give us a little bit of the backstory on this one, Cav, and the reason why we are ragging on Mr. Boll quite so much?
Well, Uwe Boll is just a special little snowflake of modern cinema, really. He's a German director who...
Not that we have a problem with Germans.
No. Who sort of carved a career for himself making probably the worst video game adaptation films ever seen. House of the Dead, Alone in the Dark, Postal, Blood Rain, Far Cry.
Blood Rain Deliverance.
Blood Rain Deliverance. look, we could go on, and he certainly did.
Blood Rain, the Third Reich.
And it basically, he memeified his own shitty movies, in a sense, because he just kept on making them. And it was because of German tax breaks. Probably going to get this wrong, so someone in the comments is going to shout at me, but it was to do with tax breaks for filmmakers. That basically all the budget spent on German productions was claimable by tax.
100%.
100%, yeah. So he just started churning out these movies to make a buck off the meager profits. Because, hey, 15 people see your movie, you're still $15 ahead.
In fairness, I mean, there are actors such as Danny Dyer in the UK who never had a particularly huge career of any description, but for a while was being able to churn out certain kind of action gangster movies because they were going straight to DVD and he had just enough. The budgets were just small enough and he was making just enough of a return to keep a career churning on.
Well, I think the thing was with the German tax law is that they were trying to compete with Hollywood at the time because they wanted to bring out, they wanted to be a power because Hollywood was just, taking off and whatever. So it is that 100% of, the thing to make a movie is 100% tax deductible. So if you spent $2 million to make a movie, you could claim that $200 back, $2 million back, not have to pay any tax on it. The thing was, the only time you had to pay tax was on the profits from the film. So if you made a really shitty film, you're still going to get money back, and you only have to pay a little bit of tax if it makes money.
And then it's springtime for Hitler and Germany.
And the thing is, as well, one of the weird sort of symptoms of this is because these movies were all profitable, he was consistently able to get top-tier talent in these shitty movies. Ben Kingsley, Jason Statham,
Christian Slater,
Ray Liotta in Dungeon Siege.
Oh, jeez.
Mind you, that he had fucking Matthew Lillard as well, so...
I love Matthew Lillard.
Oh, fuck him. I
love him so much.
Overacting fucking good.
There's
anyway.
13 Ghosts and Hackers and Scooby-Doo movies, and there's I think he was in Scream as well. Oh. I'm sorry, I was
going to say, do we need to leave you alone over there?
I'm fine.
But yeah, I mean, he had all these sort of big names, or at least,
what's with the fight?
Oh, yeah. So what happened was, I believe it was some people called him out on how shitty his films actually were. So, I can't pronounce
Uwe
it.
Boll.
Uwe Boll.
Remember, think unimprovable.
Oh, well, anyway, and so he challenged 5 of these people who were calling him out on the internet.
Well, the critics, I believe, yes.
And he literally beat the shit out of them in a boxing match.
Apparently, he was a semi-professional boxer at one stage. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet regarding this. Basically, critics who took part in this claiming that they were offered training for this fight and never received it. There was one critic who was an experienced amateur boxer. I've heard conflicting reports. Some say that Boll did fight him. Other reports say that he avoided him like the plague. But yeah, it was this weird thing. Apparently, there's a documentary about it.
Called Raging Boll.
Yeah.
Really? Seriously?
Yeah.
And that's the point where I
love a good
started to kind of turn around a little on Uwe Boll. Look, his movies are dog shit, but as a character, he is fucking hilarious. Just go to Google and type in, or go to YouTube actually, and type in Uwe Boll rant. Because he has this habit of going to YouTube and just going on these amazing Teutonic inflected rants against critics and the public. I think he tried to kickstart a movie a couple of years ago and it failed miserably. And he took to YouTube, basically calling everybody retards.
Hold on, let's see if we can get a snippet of this.
Chani is typing Uwe Boll rant, and first entry is called "Fuck You All."
My message is fuck yourself, because that is so fucking absurd. What retarded amateur idiots collecting money on that absurd websites, and it's all fucking bullshit, and I will never do it in my life again. For me, crowdfunding is absolutely dead.
Crowdfunding is absolutely dead and bullshit.
Of course. Spoken by a man who sees the future.
See, this is the thing. He may be full of Teutonic rage. He's no Werner Herzog.
Oh no. He might be equal to one of the monkeys in Agira the Wrath of God. If no, they perform better actually. No.
In my head, I just went, hey, with the monkeys.
See, this is one of the reasons why I am glad that whilst he has been shitting all over the genre liberally and with a great deal of spray, we do at least have some people out there who are trying to make half-decent movies. And this is the point where we start talking about Warcraft. Now, I haven't seen the movie, but our esteemed correspondent, Mr. Cav, has. So, Cav, what did you think of Warcraft?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I went with Sharon, my girlfriend, who is a huge fan. She'll always talk about her dark period where she was basically, playing Warcraft constantly.
We all have that dark period.
I didn't actually.
I did. I still go in every so often.
Well, she was squealing like a mad thing throughout the whole movie. It's pretty good. It's flawed. What I found out subsequently is that, again, as with a lot of these cases, a lot of the game lore was changed to suit the film. But I thought that for the most part, finding out what those changes were, they were actually changes that made sense. I mean, even then, still, there were sections where I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but I was still enjoying it.
Cool.
It was directed by Duncan Jones, who's a very good director, who directed Moon, which is another movie you really should see.
Moon.
Yeah. And Source Code as well, which was good fun.
That was good too.
Yep. Duncan Jones, formerly known as Zoe Bowie, David Bowie's son.
Oh. Speaking of directors and Warcraft, there is a little section that I have found, a little quote that I'd like to share with everyone, since we were speaking about Mr. Boll before. Apparently, Mr. Boll contacted Blizzard about actually directing Warcraft, and Blizzard said no. In fact, Uwe Boll has stated, I got in contact with Paul Sams of Blizzard, and he said, we will not sell the movie rights. Not to you. Especially not to you. Because it's such a big online game success. Maybe a bad movie would destroy that ongoing income, what the company has with it. So they pretty much told him to go fuck himself because he's synonymous with bad video game movies.
So then I called him retard, and I boxed him. Yeah, good job, Blizzard. Good job, because look, they've been holding on to this for years. This property. And apparently when Duncan Jones came in, he made some very sort of let's change the script up. Sam Raimi was attached to this movie for a long time. And one of the main changes apparently made was to give equal time to the orcs as opposed to the humans, which was a very good idea because the orcs are fantastic in this film.
Because I don't play at all. One of the reasons I don't get involved with World of Warcraft at the very least is because of the fact that I know damn well if I go in there, I ain't coming out again anytime soon. I know what I'm like with some things like this. My fiance, however, does play regularly, and from what I've heard from her and from other players, one of the advantages is you don't necessarily play one side. You have two very different sides, and the boundaries between what is good and what is bad, in inverted commas, are very, very blurred. And so therefore one of the essential things for this movie surely is to present both parties with some equal degree of decency, something whereby they both seem to have something to their point of view.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, the orc characters kind of out-act a lot of the humans in the movie, and that's not really a knock on the humans. They're less interesting than the orcs. And
of course they are. Horde, I play Horde. I'll just put it out there right now. I'm all for the Horde. So, of course, we're going to be the more interesting ones. Mind you, my best friend and Mike's fiance plays for Alliance. They don't really talk about that much.
But no, the thing that struck me about it was, and I've been trying to find a good way to put this, because one thing I personally hate is when people giving their opinions of films is phrases like, oh, they're hard to earn in it, or oh, it lacked heart, or that kind of thing. Because often to me, that's code for, I didn't like this thing and I'm just not articulate enough to explain why.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, but the thing I think which carries this film over the line in a lot of ways, and has been absent from a lot of these other movies, is you can tell it's been made by fans who genuinely love this property. And when the changes they've made, it's not just been to appeal to other markets. It's come from a place of, no, we love this thing. We want it to appeal to everybody.
See, from what I've heard, and again, I can't necessarily say that this is definitely the case, but from what I've heard, Jones makes a very good fist of taking all of those things that are necessary for a big adaptation of this sort and having all of those elements included in the movie, yet still making a good and interesting movie. Because I think, and this goes back previously to our discussion of Preacher on a previous episode, there is an element of you've got certain things that kind of have to be there, and the bigger the list of those things, the harder the director's job.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not perfect, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are sections of the film where the pacing is off, the editing is a little strange, scenes don't seem to finish properly, or they seem to jump in halfway through, and sometimes character motivations seem to get lost a little. I mean, it is flawed, but it's also very ambitious, and it's been a rare thing for these video game movies where the flaws come from actually trying to maybe do too much as opposed to doing too little. On those terms alone, I think it's going to be a pretty important movie, whether or not you like it, and there's plenty of critics who don't. It could actually turn out to be something of a turning point, I think.
This is the thing, you say there are critics that don't, and that's perfectly reasonable, but also, more crucially, there are notable critics that do. Not necessarily just all of the notable ones, but the film is not getting a universal panning. And a lot of the people who might not necessarily be well predisposed to this are noting its qualities. And I think a large chunk of that has to do with the fact that they've got someone like Jones directing. I wasn't all that fussed about source code, but I think one of the main reasons for that had much more to do with the actual narrative itself not quite working. Jones was actually brought in on that film halfway through, so he wasn't the original director. Similar here as well, he wasn't necessarily the first choice, but he's come in and made a good job. Moon was entirely his baby, and is one of the most beautiful and haunting, brilliant pieces of sci-fi for at least the last 20 years.
Oh, seriously, people, see Moon. If you haven't seen Moon, see it. It's fucking amazing.
And that shows that he's got this talent in terms of his vision, in terms of what he wants to see, in terms of the sets he wants to build and work with, and the worlds he wants to create, the narratives he wants to explore, and the fact that he's interested in something that's beyond... I mean, the thing is, he's able to tell, from what I can gather in this one, it's very much, there's a big kind of overall narrative, but he's also going to the meta-narrative in terms of the background, from everything I've heard. Because certainly that's what happened with Moon. Moon was a film about much more than the events that are happening there.
Yeah, and another thing that he does, which I really appreciate, though I wish we saw more often in blockbuster films, is that most of the big CGI shots I can think of in the film, there's a shitload of CGI in this film, but it's always shot from an angle that suggests that a real camera was there. It doesn't overload on the big unrealistic swooping shots that no camera in reality could ever pull off. And that's something I actually love to see, because I think a lot of the problems people have with CGI quite often isn't to do with the actual quality of the effects, it's the way it's presented.
Okay, fantastic. Well, to be honest with you, if we can have this finally be that moment of hope where computer game movie adaptations could be going somewhere, then I think we're onto a winner, because honestly, it's taken long enough, and if we've finally got people who started to get how to meld those two narratives, potentially we could be in for some very interesting adaptations in the future. That's it for our podcast for the moment. We will be, at some point in the none too distant future, probably on our next podcast, dealing with the other thorny issue about films at the moment, that of the upcoming adaptation of Ghostbusters and all of the kind of worms that is associated with that.
No!
So, in the meanwhile, Cav, where can they find you?
Yep, I can be found on the LB Geek podcast discussion page, also in the pages of Metro Magazine.
And you can always find me on YouTube under Perimeter. I'm also available on Facebook and Twitter. But quickly, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Resident Evil. Miller, we love you. We didn't forget about you. Your movies are just awesome.
So is Mila Jovovich. I mean, you were saying that thing about Angelina Jolie earlier on.
Oh, yeah, Miller's higher than Angelina.
Oh, absolutely. As
Yeah.
she should be. As she should be. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I wouldn't kick either of them out of bed for eating biscuits, but you know.
And Samantha Mathis is higher than both of them, which, by the way, is Princess Daisy out of Super Mario Brothers movie. So there's a hottie in there too.
Anyway, you can also find me on the There Will Be Geek podcast group. It's pages on Facebook. One of these days, we will get around to actually being active on @There Will Be Geek on Twitter. But in the meanwhile, only one last thing to say. We're finished!